The sun blazed high overhead, painting the golden plains in a wash of heat and silence. It was the kind of day that made the earth crack and the air shimmer. Snow White, a young wildlife researcher, moved through the tall, brittle grass, her face flushed from the relentless heat. Her dark hair was tied back with a red ribbon, the only color in the otherwise dusty landscape. She had been following reports of illegal traps threatening the local lion population, creatures she had long admired and studied. With a small satchel slung over her shoulder and her canteen nearly empty, she pressed forward, determined to find and dismantle any snares before sunset. Her boots kicked up dust with each step, and the dryness clawed at her throat like sandpaper. The radio strapped to her side had long gone silent. No signal, no backup, just her and the wild. Her eyes caught faint footprints, human ones, leading toward a cluster of thorny trees. A surge of adrenaline pushed her forward. The poachers couldn't be far, but the brutal sun took its toll. Her pace slowed, her breaths came shallow, and her vision began to blur around the edges. She stumbled, catching herself just before falling, but it was clear. Her body was nearing its limit. She found one of the traps dangling from a low branch, rusted wire, deadly and cruel. Her heart sank. They'd been here recently. Crouching, she tried to trace fresh tracks, but dizziness overwhelmed her. The world spun. Her knees buckled. Darkness closed in. She collapsed beneath the sparse shade of an old acacia tree, too weak to call for help. Her fingers curled into the dry earth. Her eyes fluttered shut, alone in the heart of the wild. A deep growl rumbled nearby, shaking her back to a hazy awareness. Her body was too heavy to move, her lips cracked with thirst, but instinct forced her eyes open. Shapes moved in the light, golden and powerful. A lion, massive, regal. He stood just feet away, his amber eyes fixed on her. A lioness stood beside him, tense and watchful, while a small cub peeked from behind her legs. Panic surged through Snow White. She couldn't move, couldn't run. If they decided she was prey, she had no defense. But they didn't strike. The male lion stepped closer, sniffing the air, then let out a low, breathy sound, almost gentle. The lioness did the same, then sat beside her cub, curling her tail around the little one. They weren't hunting her. They were watching her, guarding her. Confusion and disbelief battled in her foggy mind, but the heat and exhaustion were too much. Her body surrendered once more, sinking into the earth. The last thing she saw before drifting back into unconsciousness were the golden eyes of the lion, unblinking and calm. In the swirling haze of dreams and memories, a scene from years past resurfaced. She had only just begun her work in the wild when she'd heard a terrible cry, a sound full of fear and pain. Rushing through the grass, she found a lion cub tangled in a poacher's wire, its small body shaking with panic. The mother was nearby, her roars fierce and full of anguish. Snow White remembered how she had slowly approached, hands out, unarmed. The lioness snarled, her muscles taut, but didn't attack. Carefully, Snow White had cut the wire, freeing the cub. The baby ran to its mother, who nuzzled it gently. Then the lioness looked at her, not with hate, but with something else, something that felt like understanding. And now, lying weak and helpless beneath the same sky, she realized this lion, this towering male, might be that very cub, all grown. A bond that had seemed fleeting was not lost. It had lived on. Time passed slowly. The air pulsed with the hum of insects and the rustle of dry grass. Snow White drifted in and out of consciousness, barely aware of the world around her. The lion, his mane dark and thick, sat close by. The lioness and cub remained near, never leaving her side. Then faint laughter echoed through the clearing. Hyenas, 2 of them, skulking at the edge of the brush, their eyes gleaming with cruel intent. Snow White couldn't move, couldn't even lift her head, but she didn't have to. The lion rose to his full height, letting out a deep, resonant growl that shook the silence. The hyenas froze, then vanished into the bush. The lion returned to his post without fanfare. That's when she understood. She wasn't being observed, she was being protected. Her fate now lay in paws rather than hands, and somehow it felt like the safest place in the world. Back at the ranger station, tension was mounting. Snow White hadn't reported in. Hours had passed. Worried, her colleagues organized a search party, led by her closest friend, a seasoned tracker who had worked beside her since the beginning. They moved quickly, scanning the parched landscape, following signs, a scuffed footprint here, a snapped twig there. Finally, they reached a clearing shaded by an acacia tree, and froze. Lions. A pride gathered near the tree, silent and still. The tracker's heart pounded. Had they attacked her? Was it already too late? But then the massive lion turned, calmly gazing at them, then shifting his head slightly, toward the tree. It wasn't a warning, it was a signal. They found her lying in the grass, barely breathing, weak, but alive. As the team moved in, the lion didn't growl, didn't move. He simply watched. When they lifted her onto a stretcher, he stepped aside with a low exhale, as if giving permission. The tracker looked back one last time. The lion stood tall, still and dignified, a silent guardian. Later, in the hum of the rescue vehicle, Snow White stirred. Pain shot through her limbs, her throat burned, but she was alive. She blinked up at the face beside her, her friend's eyes red with worry and relief. "We thought we lost you," he whispered. "The lions," she murmured, voice raspy. They didn't hurt me." "No," he said softly. "They protected you." Weeks later, when she returned to the field, she spotted a familiar figure on a rocky rise. The lion stood tall against the sky, his golden mane catching the wind. Their eyes met across the distance, not as strangers, not even as scientist and subject, but as something more, something ancient and wordless, a bond, forged in fear and mercy, remembered in the wild silence. Snow White had entered the wilderness to protect life, but in the end, it was life that protected her. Nature, in all its untamed chaos, had reminded her of something deeper, a truth older than memory. That kindness, even once, can echo for years, and sometimes the wild watches over its own.